Obama administration, when it came into office in 2009, in the midst of the financial crisis, the meltdown of the automobile manufacturers, the Lehman Brothers, everything else happening in 2008, 2009, Barack Obama pledged to fundamentally transform America. He was never going to let a crisis go to waste, if you recall, and began to engage in upheaval that went beyond Obamacare, to the point of a massive expansion of abortion rights in the country, suing nuns who didn't want to pay for abortions. They lost at the Supreme Court, discrediting institutions and individuals that tried to stand in their way, even legally harassing those who objected to the Obama administration. Consider the number of people the IRS under Lois Lerner, with the rise of Tea Party groups, they blocked their 501c3 status. They dragged their feet on them. They engaged in audits of Barack Obama's political enemies through the IRS. They did all these things, all of them documented. And there's always this ongoing level of cluelessness on the left as to what is actually happening, what has actually happened, and who's to blame for it. And now we've got this situation where you have a financial situation in this country, and you have the inflation from the Biden administration. You have people's wages barely catching up at this point to where inflation has been. And the Trump administration, they did not use the words in public, but in private, they have told a lot of people they now wish to fundamentally transform America. They want to reset and undo the damage of the Obama era. What's not to love about that, honestly? They overplayed their hand too much in the Obama administration, and this just sets it right. Kevin Hassett, who is the economic advisor to Donald Trump, one of them, was on with Larry Kudlow. They had an exchange where they were talking about wages as they have been offset by the inflationary pressures of the Biden administration.
So that's good. Music to my ears, of course. What about middle income, maybe even lower income, too? Wage growth, wages have been pounded during the prior administration. Prices rose much faster than wages. So if you get this extension through and you get the new Trump 2.0 tax cuts through, good for companies, good for individuals, good for small business. What might wage growth look like? Middle income wage growth, typical wage growth.
Mindful that at the peak of the inflation crisis under Biden, real wages declined by about $2,000 for the typical worker, and that they were up, in the Trump administration by more than the $4,000 that President Trump promised. And so the thing that we're doing is we're taking those policies and renewing them and extending them, but we're also adding new things that directly benefit real wages, because it's not the real before-tax wage that matters a lot, right? It's the real after-tax wage. And so if you cut taxes on Social Security, if you cut taxes on overtime, if you cut taxes on tips, then that increases real wages after tax for people that matter the most. And again, I can't highlight enough in terms of the growth effects that if you're cutting the taxes on people who are mostly hourly workers, that it's the hours that respond a lot. And so you can get really, really big economic effects out of these tax changes. Recall, Larry, that about 70% of value added in the U.S. is produced by American workers. And so if you change the output of American workers, the hourly contribution of American workers to work, then you can have a really big GDP effect. And that effect, that big effect, is something that's the next stage of our modeling. The first stage is just what we did last time, and already we're getting really astonishing numbers.
So, listen, I understand the arguments the Trump team is making on rearranging taxes and things, but you've got Peter Navarro out there. Now, that was Kevin Hassett, but Peter Navarro, who was a Democrat up until a couple of years ago and still thinks like a Democrat, frankly, and he says that tariffs are a tax cut. Now, here's my point. You want to fundamentally transform the country. The nation, maybe not you, but think about your neighbor. Your neighbor is only just now beginning to feel like they're catching up. You add tariffs now for promises of possible future growth in manufacturing and wages at a date to be determined in the future. You may be okay with it, but what about your neighbor? The Republicans have a special election in Florida today, two of them, Matt Gaetz' seat and Mike Waltz's seat. Randy Fine, not a strong candidate in Waltz's seat. He's the Republican, struggling, probably going to win, but it's been more of a fight than it should be. Voters are mobilized against Trump on the left. They tend to show up in special elections. But in five out of five of the last midterm election cycles, the party that does the best in the special elections is the party that takes back the House. What I'm being told from people inside the Trump administration, and frankly, what the media is reporting is exactly what I'm hearing, probably from the same people, is that the Republicans of the White House have concluded that the House is gone anyway. They're going to lose the House. So they're moving as fast as they possibly can right now to fundamentally transform America. And there's a lot to love about it. The deportations, the cutting of the federal workforce, what DOGE is doing, finding waste, fraud, and abuse, all these sorts of things. The problem, however, is this. What Peter Navarro has convinced the president is that you impose tariffs today. And by the way, we're not talking about the reciprocal tariffs. The tariffs on the auto industry, not reciprocal. The steel tariffs, not reciprocal. The aluminum tariffs, not reciprocal. The Canadian tariffs, not reciprocal. The Chinese tariffs, not reciprocal, though who cares about China? The Mexican tariffs, not reciprocal. We don't know. There are two reports out today, one of the Wall Street Journal, one of the New York Times. The president wants higher overall tariffs, not just reciprocal tariffs. The tariffs we have now are not the reciprocal tariffs. We've got additional tariffs. Here's the problem, whether you like the tariffs or not. I'm not here I think they're bad, but for the sake of argument, let's say you're right. The problem is the prices go up today in exchange for a future payoff. Are you sure in your effort to fundamentally transform the nation that raising people's costs right now while they haven't gotten over the cost of Bidenomics is a good thing and it's going to work for you? It's a huge gamble for the president. My point is this. We know that if you deregulate and you lower taxes, the economy speeds up. I'm not sure why prioritizing tariffs over deregulation and cutting taxes, the tax cut package isn't out yet, why we're not doing that. I wish someone would go to the president and say, hey, you're getting some bad advice from guys like Navarro because your investment strategy for the future is in the future, and people are going to feel the cost right now. Peter Navarro is on TV being very Orwellian, saying that tariffs are actually a tax cut. Well, his argument is that if you raise the income from the tariffs now, then when we get the tax cut package later, we're going to be able to offset the tariffs with tax cuts for people, so you won't actually feel them, except you're going to feel them right now. When Barack Obama decided to fundamentally transform America after the financial crisis of 2008, he overplayed his hand and there was a huge backlash. The Republicans in the White House right now, I'm being told by them directly, the media's reporting as well, they think the House is gone in 26. They think the GOP will save the Senate, be back in the minority. My question is this. Have you thought about the down ballot races? When you go to 2010, what happened to Barack Obama and the Democrats? Barack Obama and the Democrats lost the most seats for a political party since 1894, down to the local level. Wiped out the Democratic bench. My concern is that as much as I like the direction we're headed, tariffs are such an economic wild card for people that you might forestall your ability to fundamentally transform the country because of the negative ramifications of tariffs. What if they're not offset by the tax plan? If the economy slows from tariffs, that's going to slow revenue to Washington, D.C. That's going to make the tax cuts, make it more awkward to cut taxes to the level you and I want. And again, maybe you're fine, but are you sure your neighbor's okay? Are you sure your neighbor is going to be fine when they need to go get a new car and decide they've got to get a used car instead, but the used car prices have gone up because the demand for used cars has gotten higher because of the tariffs on new cars? You do understand there's not a car in the United States, Tesla included, that doesn't include parts from abroad, and each of those parts has a tariff on it now. It's going to raise the cost of even, like, I'm about to upgrade my GM. And the tariff's going to impact that because it's made in this country, but it's got parts inside it that are made from abroad. This isn't a smart way. I want to fundamentally undo the damage Barack Obama did. I appreciate Donald Trump shares that goal. My frustration is some of his economic advisors have decided to get him to embrace the economic policies of the Democrats from the 1970s, and we saw how that worked for Jimmy Carter. We got stagflation. And now there's a report out that he wants to bail out the farmers. Now, this is what he did in his first term. The tariffs in 2017 that he imposed actually hurt farmers, and so he gave cash payments to the farmers from the government. Now, there's a rescue package that looks like this. It was $23 billion in 2018, not 2017, $23 billion. So now if we've got to bail out the farmers because of the tariffs, that now adds more to the national deficit, which then impacts our tax-cutting future. It just seems to me we've rushed so far down this road that these decisions now are going to impact the ability of the Republicans to do their comprehensive tax reform that does fundamentally transform the American economy. All I'm saying, all my concern is the president is headed in the right direction. He's undoing the damage of Barack Obama that was amplified by Joe Biden. He's pushing back against the left. And I'm afraid if he can't deliver economically, it's going to hurt him. This is the latest data from CBS on the economy and on what Americans are seeing when it comes to dealing with the economy. What they're finding is that more and more Americans now, they no longer see inflation or immigration as a big deal. But what they see is inflation is a very big deal.
The economy, what gives?
Well, we know. Good morning, Major. We know that people still say the economy is bad. We know that prices and inflation are the top reason they give for why. So in this poll, we find that the president's approval for specifically handling the economy and inflation are both ticked down. Now, let's talk about these tariffs because, look, it's early in the administration, so I think the key gauge is what do people think he's trying to do? And here we see a mismatch. They think he's putting too much focus on trying to put in tariffs and not enough focus on trying to lower prices. Now, the mismatch there is the administration argues, well, that'll have positive impact. But also, in the long term, there's a lot of people who think tariffs will raise prices. So the administration hasn't quite connected the dots on that argument yet.
That's the concern here. If the American people believe that tariffs are going to raise prices short term and long term, it's going to upend his ability to transform the United States in the way you and I want. So I hope that someone somewhere within the White House, Susie Wiles or someone, can point out to the president that maybe listening to Peter Navarro and rushing down this course on tariffs isn't the best idea. You and I can embrace the idea of reciprocal tariffs, but what we're doing right now isn't reciprocity, it's general tariffs. And the American public is queasy about those. And there are elections in Florida, one of which is a seat that it should be dominated by the GOP, that they could lose today because voter enthusiasm. These alarm bells are going off. You and I both want Donald Trump to undo the damage of Barack Obama and Joe Biden and fundamentally transform America for the better. If people get mad at the tariffs, it risks the entire project.